Hi ladies, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Today I'm super excited to be sharing this look with you today. I like to call this my smoldering red look. Kind of like a pop of cherry. So this is one of my favorite go-to date night looks, and if you're ready to see how I accomplished this look, keep on watching. So this is something that I feel like makes me feel really beautiful, and it really works for my skin. If you have oily skin, this should work for you as well. And let's get into it. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is put my hair back and out of the way so that putting on my makeup is really easy and it doesn't really get into my hair. So it's not very beautiful what I do, but I just take these little clips and push my hair back. So I do this because the clips are really kind of loose. They don't get too tight, and so it doesn't actually like crimp my hair as opposed to using something flat. I used to use something that was a little bit more flat on my hair and it really ruined my style. So if you're the type of gal that likes to do her hair first, or you worked all day and you're doing your makeup after work, this really works for me because it's just completely out of the way without ruining my hairstyle. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to start with a clean and fresh face. If you want some examples of what I think is really great to prep your face, watch my last video, I'll link it up above. And then the next thing that you want to do is you want to start with a sponge, and I like to dampen mine a little bit with some water, and then I take something flat. So this is my loose finishing powder, and I just drop my liquid foundation on top of there. For today, I'm gonna be using the Estēe Lauder Double Wear Foundation. Right now, I'm in the color 2C1 in Pure Beige. And like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and shake this up a little bit, tilt it upside down, flip it back up, and then just drop a little bit on top of this. You can always add more, but you can't put it back after you take it out. So then I like to take the remaining amount and just kind of swipe it off the top right here and start pressing it in. So I actually forgot one step. I'm gonna go ahead and apply my primer, which right now is the PORE Fessional. And what I like to do is I like to squeeze out just a little tiny bit. And then what I really like to do is get it in the areas where I'm the most oily, which is right here on my forehead, down my nose, and right here. And then for some reason I get really oily right here, so I'm just gonna add some extra there. I like how this feels. It's so like silky smooth. I'm gonna go ahead and dip into this and start applying. So what I really like to do is I like to start with the top of my forehead and work my way down. So I do personally go a tiny bit darker with my foundation once it gets to this point in time of the year, because that's when my skin kind of starts to change. The sun is out more often, so I go outside more often and my skin color deepens up a little bit. So this is about the time that I start kind of purchasing a little bit darker shades. I also feel like it covers up the pinkness and like redness that I have in my skin tone. I actually went to go get color matched the other day at Ulta, and the lady there, oh my gosh, she was so amazing. But she was like, so it looks like you're a little bit pink, and she went to go grab some colors, and I was like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Please don't make me pink. If you don't mind being pink, then, you know, like, more power to you. I don't have anything against other people. Like, I've never looked at somebody's skin tone color and been like, whoa, you have a funky skin tone color. But for me, my actual skin tone, like, the pinkness that I have in it, I really don't like. And like I said, once summer rolls around, it kind of changes a little bit, but right now it's definitely got a pink undertone. So I feel like going a tiny bit darker just like covers that pinkness more rather than going lighter. I tend to find that going lighter, it shows through. And because it is a little bit darker, I do like to bring it down on my neck a little bit. So for me, I actually had a really hard time finding people online and on YouTube that have oily skin and that can give me really good instructions on what to do for my particular face. So I actually learned about this foundation by having my wedding, and the lady used it on me and it worked the entire night. So that was like such a huge game changer for my skin because I feel like it's really smooth and complements my skin really well. I don't get those like weird lines in my nose here when I apply. And I also will a lot of times get lines in here when I apply my foundation to it, and it doesn't really do that. So I feel like it just gives it a really good base to start with, and you want a good base to start with. Okay, so the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get started on my eyes. And what I like to use is the Tarte Shape Tape. I also use this MAC 287. It has these really soft little bristles that are kind of separated. So I feel like it does a really good job of applying a really small, gentle amount. For this, a little tip is that you don't want a whole lot on your brush. So what I've noticed is that when you pull this up, there's this little tiny amount up here that you can stick your brush into, and that stuff is never gonna get used. So it does two things. It kind of lets you use all of what you've got, and it also lets you grab just like the teensiest bit because you don't want to overdo what you're putting on. You want it to be really soft and subtle. It's just gonna hold that eyeshadow down a little bit longer. So I really like to focus at this inner corner and start going out. I go all the way up to my eyebrow, and I really set it into these like fine, really fine lines here. And I'm just like dabbing super softly, super gentle dabs. So again, just dabbing in really gently. And working it all the way up to the eyebrow and then patting in any fine lines that you have. Okay, now to get into eyeshadow. So I just purchased this palette and I love it. It's the Naked Urban Decay Cherry palette. It has all these gorgeous colors. So if you have a palette that's similar, don't be afraid to use it. I'm gonna use this super fluffy brush from Morphe. I actually don't have, I'll attach the number down below. I've used this brush so much that I've actually taken off the number from it. I'm gonna dip into this color called Juicy. And I really love this brush because it lets you just go really gently into that upper area so beautifully. Like, it does such a beautiful job of blending. So what I like to do is basically my eyebrows here and my bone goes to here. So I like to leave just like the tiniest bit between my eyebrow and my eye socket. So I'm going all the way in here and dragging it all the way out. So again, just grabbing a tiny bit more, focusing it a little bit more out here. What I like to do is to give it a little flick right out here. And do the same for the other side. So one thing that I've learned from doing my own makeup is that I like a really soft, gentle color. But because we're doing a little bit more of a bold look today, I'm using, it's still a soft color in the palette, but it speaks a little bit louder than you would probably normally do on like an everyday basis. Also, don't be afraid to get a little bit crazy because we're gonna add stuff on top of this. So if it doesn't look perfect under the top of this line, that's fine. What you wanna mainly focus on is this top part here and making sure that that's really buffed out, and it doesn't have to be super blended below that line. Next, using my M330 brush, which is also another fluffy brush, I'm going to dip into bling. And with this, we're gonna focus a little bit more on this outer corner. And swoop it out. See how it's kind of added more depth compared to this one? There's more depth on this outer corner. So we're gonna do that again on this side. Does anybody else have that one side that's just like so much harder to do than the other? I feel like my left side is so much more difficult to get the way that I want it to look. Maybe because I'm like going across. So again, we're focusing really closely in on this outer corner. And when I first put it on, I like to just like really just pat, pat, pat on the outer edge. And then once most of that has accumulated right in the corner, that's when I like to start kind of dragging it over in little tiny circular motions. Doing my best to keep it underneath that original line that I placed up here. Don't forget that you can always add more up there if you realize that you maybe didn't go quite high enough, or you accidentally go a little bit higher with a darker color. And then I'm gonna start kind of wisping it out away from my eye the way that you would do a cat eye. So I'm sure that you can tell that I am definitely not a makeup artist. I am not a professional. I'm gonna go ahead and go back in that lighter color up higher on this side. But I do love doing my makeup, and it's one of my favorite parts about going on dates and like getting ready for dates is doing my makeup and coming up with different looks and finding like different colors that work for me. And that's why I thought that I would just share what I really enjoy doing and what works for my skin and what lasts. I did have this really fun idea though, and comment down in the comment section how you feel about this, but I was thinking about doing a test between different makeup styles or like different makeup techniques and what lasts all night. So like actually physically show you how I do my makeup and then go out on a date and come back after the date and show you how it wore and like what really works. Because I see different techniques from people, and I really genuinely myself am curious about how it actually stays and how it actually works. And if you feel like it would be helpful for you, I'd love to create a video like that. So again, comment down in the comment section if that's something that you wanna see. Moving on with our makeup. So I'm really liking how it's looking so far. I think that I wanna add just a tiny bit more darkness. So I'm gonna go in with a darker color, but I wanna go in with a smaller brush to add that darkness because I don't wanna get it everywhere. So I'm gonna go in with this Morphe brush. It also has the number mostly taken off. I think it's MB79 or B79 from what I can read. And then I'm gonna go in with Devilish. Whoop. So I'm gonna just dab a little tiny bit on there and knock it off. Just go in really, really softly in little tiny circular motions. And then I'm gonna gently bring it you see how my bone dips right here? I'm gonna just gently bring it under that area. So just barely darkened it up. Something that I've noticed is that because I struggle with putting my eye makeup on with this side, that I actually do techniques differently depending on which side I'm working on. So on this side, to get like really tiny strokes, I'm doing that little tiny round motion. On this side, when I do a little tiny round motion, if I feel like it's tiny, a lot of times it ends up being way bigger and it takes over the section that I didn't want to cover up. So on this side, I've actually noticed that what I do is I set it down where I want it and I kind of brush it in toward where I want it to go. So because I've noticed that if I do this, I end up going way too big, whereas if I'm doing it on this side, I can do little tiny strokes and it feels right to my hand. On this side, it doesn't feel right to do that and I end up going way too big. So if I do little tiny, they're almost like this, little teeny tiny strokes, then I'm bringing it in toward my eye, but I'm not bringing it over where I want it. So I start at the lowest point where I want that to go. And then even here, I'll go really gently running it under that eyebrow bone, but a lot more gentle than I would on the other side because I don't have as much control with this side. And again, we're gonna put a topper on our eyes, so it doesn't matter if you go a little crazy on the underneath section. You definitely don't wanna go over what we've done above, but if you go below that, it's totally fine. Now I'm gonna get a little bit closer to this edge and just kind of wisp it out a teensy little bit. And taking our M330 brush, I'm gonna just gently meld it all together. So my eyes are actually my favorite feature of my face. They always have been. And when I was younger doing makeup, I used to feel like I couldn't use anything besides browns and like neutral tones. And through time and through experience with working with makeup, I've realized that by playing around, my eyes actually can handle different colors. So before I used to just use browns and super light pinks. I found that in the fall, I really like using oranges, and it's still kind of in the neutral palette, but oranges and reds and stuff like that actually make my eyes pop in a way that I really enjoy and I really like. So play around with your makeup and try to settle on a look before your date. It makes things so much easier. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is we're gonna do the eye topper, which is probably the most exciting part. It's the Stila, and this one is in the color Jezebel. They have so many other colors, but this is just like so beautiful. Look at that, oh my God. And we're gonna take this Morphe M213. It has this little teeny tiny little head so that I have complete and total control of what I'm doing. And I'm gonna go ahead and zoom you in and show you what I'm gonna do. So what I like to do is I like to open it up and take this tiny little brush and just scoop a little bit off and start applying it to my eyes. So start from the inner corner. And like I said, I have like super oily skin and this stuff sticks, let me tell you. I'm so impressed. So I'm gonna drop it down a little bit. I may do this after concealer, adding some more. So I just really lightly tap it in and add some more to that brush and do the other side. And I'm just gently dabbing on. See how lightly that, I mean, that looks funny, but I'm just so gently dabbing it in. And what you want to do is you want to kind of make this like gradient in between, because you don't want to have a super harsh line in between the two sides, since we're not going all the way over. And then after we put on concealer, I'm going to add some more in here just to make it really stand out and pop. Okay, so now that our eyeshadow is completely done, I am going to go ahead and put on some eyeliner and some false eyelashes, and I will be right back. So today I'm going with these like super light wispy eyelashes. They're a little bit more natural looking, but I think that that's okay for like a first date or a second date to look a little bit more natural. And to me, these are kind of like sensual because they're like fluttery. They kind of make you feel like you're gonna give somebody a butterfly kiss. So the next thing that I'm gonna do, I actually learned this tip from Raw Beauty Christy, and thank you so much for this tip, girlfriend. You are amazing. I love your work. You've totally changed my eyelash game by giving us all this tip. So her tip is to apply your eyelashes without mascara on and put mascara on afterwards. It makes applying your eyelashes so much easier, and it does really blend it all in together once you're all done. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna jump into is concealer. Now I'm gonna go back into that Tarte Shape Tape. What I like to do is I like to go ahead and pop it out and just dab a couple dabs right up here. And I find that by kind of keeping it all together, I end up not applying too much, and it sort of like keeps it where I want it. I'm gonna go back into this beauty blender and I'm gonna go ahead and dab it in. So what I like to do is I like to use this side for my foundation, the side that has a longer curve on it, and then I use a shorter curve for my concealer. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna like really press into this area and slowly kind of push it outwards. But to me, it gives it like a softer edge right here. I notice that if I do what a lot of people do, which is go like this and then like that, I end up with this like super stiff, strong edge right there, and it ends up not blending super beautifully with everything else. And then I kind of like blend this line, I kind of curve it up like this. Remember, when you're using a beauty blender, you're just softly dabbing without the intent of super moving everything around, mostly the intent of blending. So I do like to take it up like this, but it's a gradual process, you know, you wanna just dab, dab, dab. So once I've got my under eyes concealed, see how it makes it so much brighter under here? The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take some more. So I'm gonna just gently wipe it off so that there's not too much. I put a little tiny dot on the tip of my nose and a little bit going up. And then for this part, I use the back side and kind of give myself a little brush up here. So I like to do this part before doing my eyebrows because I tend, if I do it afterwards, tend to end up ruining my eyebrows, and going over it. So again, for this part of the nose, we're just gonna do super small dabs on the tip of our nose. So I'm gonna quickly just make sure the very tip of my nose is done. So once I'm done putting that concealer on my nose, I'm gonna go ahead and take a angled brush. You can use any super soft, fluffy angled brush and whatever contour palette you like. And I'm just gonna super gently go under the tip of my nose, again, to kind of give it that button effect without having a button nose. I'm also gonna lift my lip up a little bit and put some under this part of my lip. And that sort of gives the effect that your lip is just a tiny bit bigger, again, without having anything cosmetic. You can do a little bit of contour, goes a long way. So I like to go all the way from my brow down the side of my nose. And the closer together you do it on the top of your nose, the more it makes your nose look small and petite, gives it that sort of shadow effect. And I like to sort of feather it into my eyebrows so it all looks like it's one. Now, using this large Morphe slanted brush, I'm gonna go ahead and use that same contour that I used for the sides of my cheeks. Now I'm gonna follow this cheekbone and I'm gonna focus it a little bit more out here and really bring it into my hairline, so it's all blended really well. So again, sometimes it can help to do this, so you can see where that is, or smile and see where your smile line is. And I like to go just above my cheekbone almost to really suck it all up. And I'm gonna add a little tiny bit up here on my forehead. Again, you wanna make sure you are really bringing it into your hairline so that it's all completely blended. You don't want a super sharp line to go around your hairline. And I like to kind of sort of keep my brush like this, not coming down like this, because then you might put too much. When you have it off to the side, you can sort of control how much you're putting on there and how low you're going. And just like your eyeshadow, you want your contour to be super well blended. So it's not a super harsh line. And then going in with this super cute Tarte Life of the Party palette, I'm gonna use my Morphe M403 brush and dip into Pool Float. And I'm gonna start up here, just right above that line that I did my contour. And again, I'm blending that into my hairline. You want everything to be seamless, and you basically want your contour and your blush to really like meld together. You don't want them to be two separate aspects. You want them to become basically one, where they like really flow together. So what I've been trying recently is, do you see how close I am to my eyeliner? Just like really getting it up there. It really lifts your face with a bright pop. And I'm just using small circular motions, really gently blending that into the hairline. So you can stay with this where it's just like super slightly coming down and you leave your cheeks kind of open. But I do like a little bit of cheek action because I feel like when I don't smile, you can't really see where my cheeks are, and I kind of like to look like I have really pink cheeks that are happy. I'm just super softly taking this and flicking it because I don't want it to be too much. Just really want it to be soft. It can be helpful to smile so you know where your cheeks are. For me, the very last thing that I like to do is add highlighter because to me it adds that like va-va-voom, really beautiful factor. So the next thing that I'm gonna go into is my eyebrows, and again, Raw Beauty Christy, love you. She used the Urban Decay brow blade and she said that it was a dupe for the MAC one, and so I went into Ulta and found myself one. And I just have to say, I'm freaking in love, so thank you. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to go into this very end tail, and I start from about here and draw a line. Now I like to kind of accentuate that tail a little bit, so if you just softly hold it, you can bring it down. And then I like to draw a little line with this, the pencil side. Draw a really soft line going over and slightly before where my brow hairs start or where they get to be super light. And then I like to basically very softly, almost like brush-like strokes, go from here to this top point of my brow. So you almost want to like put a dot there in your mind and just gently run your way up there. And then what I like to do is create brow strokes in here with the pencil side because I like the end of my tail to be a little bit thicker. And I do tend to have sort of like sparse hair in here. So I like to fill it in. And this is in the Brunette Betty color. So then I like to take the other side, which is an ink stain, and that's what I like to do, the little tiny fine strokes in the very front. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I do that. So I hold it like I would hold a normal pencil and turn it to the side for the left side. And I gently set my finger, just barely set my fingernail on my cheek. And I'm doing these tiny brush strokes from the bottom of that line that I set. So I kind of set myself up for success. I know exactly where I want to start. And I'm just softly flicking. And then I'm gonna come up in here, just very gently. Once you've flicked those little tiny hairs, I like to go in with the Gimme brow, and I'm in the number 5. And I like to gently, I do still, even though I can do it with my left hand, I notice that when I do it with my right hand, I sort of pull it over, which is really helpful for really establishing those eyebrows, like the brow hairs that I do have that don't genuinely like to be sitting up. They kind of sit to the side. So this kind of gives them that lift that they need. See how I'm starting from the bottom and pulling over and giving it just like a little flick. And then I like to go ahead and move all these brows over and a little up. Just sort of gives them more fullness. So this is the difference between a done eyebrow and a not done eyebrow. See how much lighter this one is compared to this one, and how much more sparse that one is compared to this one. Okay, so I'm gonna do the other side, and on the other side, my eyebrows are totally totally different eyebrows. You can see that this one's a lot lower down. I don't really do anything to really super change the way that this one looks, only because when I've tried to do it before, it looks really fake, unfortunately, so I just kind of deal with it. So I still start from the bottom here and go over. This is almost like my start line where I can start going up from for those little hair strokes that we use on the other side. And then again, I'm bringing that up to what I want to be more in my corner. This eyebrow is a little less, it's a little more rounded and not quite as sharp, whereas this one kind of comes to a point. This one sort of comes to a point. And then I'm gonna go ahead and drop this side down like I did on the other one, just to give it a little tiny bit more length. And then I'm coming in here and filling it in. Again, because it is really sparse, and I like the tail end to be a little thicker than I like the front to be. So I've sort of drawn this in a little tiny bit to make it go up a little bit more. And now I'm gonna switch over to that smaller side. Again, this is called the ink stain side. And I'm gonna start, again, I go over to the side and I start giving these little tiny brush strokes. Really teeny tiny. I'm gonna scoot you in a little bit more. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and go back in with this Gimme brow. And same thing, I'm going to go on the opposite side and start from that bottom line and sort of pull up. And once I get closer to where my hairs really are, I kind of pull them out and away. And then I come over here and I gently scoop these up and over. So I've added some deepness to those so that it makes it a lot more noticeable, and it matches my hair color, because this is my natural hair color, but my natural eyebrows are almost like a dirty blonde rather than being like the color of my hair. And they sort of, to me, blend in with my skin tone, if I'm being honest. It's super hard to see my eyebrows, and I also don't feel like they're very full. And with the Gimme brow and with the Urban Decay brow blade, I feel like it really gives me a look of natural eyebrows. It doesn't look, in my opinion, doesn't look too fake. Like, you can still see that there's openness They're not Instagram eyebrows, they're real life eyebrows that aren't really real life eyebrows. I mean, most of it is, yes, but a lot of it is due to this thing here. Okay, so getting back into the eyes, we're gonna polish those off. We're gonna go right under the eyes with the color we used earlier. I'm gonna go in with Juicy first, and I'm going to, because it's the lighter color that we used, go right under here. All the way to my water line. All the way from my water duct over. And I'm gonna bring it down just a slight bit. What I love about this color mixed with my blush is like they're almost the same color. So I'm kind of playing with bringing it over and into my blush. And you can just play with it until you're satisfied with the look that you have. So far this is what we're working with. It's just super light. Now I'm gonna take that slightly denser brush, but not the densest brush that we used. And I'm going to just softly dip into Bing, which is that second deepest color that we used. And I'm gonna go over, playing with the side here, sort of blending it into just under my eyeliner to deepen that up. Just as with the top of your eye, you want everything to be really well blended and seamless. Okay, now using this Clinique mascara, it's well used. I'm gonna go ahead and go in and do the lower lashes. Once you're done with that, I'm gonna dip into the Hot Spot, which is the lightest color in that cherry palette that I'm using from Urban Decay. And I'm just gonna like dip in right under the eyebrow, right in between those two colors. For this, again, the number's been worn off, but I'm using this little tiny brush from Morphe. And then like I said, I love putting on my highlighter at the very end. So using this Jaclyn Hill palette, you can honestly use whatever highlighter you love the most. I cannot say how much I love this I love this palette. But what I really love is the Beam color in here. It's so good for highlighting. Like it really, really, really pops. So when I want to look really beautiful and really have like a popping highlight, I totally dip into this. It looks really good on camera too, in my opinion. Like it really stands out. Some other highlights that I have, they're pretty, but they don't show so much on camera or like when you're taking a photograph. So I'm just really lightly applying that in here. I also like to apply it to my Cupid's bow. And then to give that button nose effect that I've talked about, just a little touch and a little bit more up here. So I don't like them to connect. I just add a little touch. And then I take this M509. I haven't added anything extra to this. I'm just blending it out slightly. So this is the final look. I think to complete it, it needs just a little bit more jazz in my hair. So I'm gonna add a little tease here and there, mostly to this side because it looks a little flat. And to me, for a date night, you really want that like va-va boom in your hair. And to me, I like to leave my lips more nude, like literally bare with just like some chapstick or a light gloss that doesn't get sticky. So if you get caught in the wind or something, your hair doesn't get stuck in it. I don't know, that always happens to me. But yeah, for a first date or a second date, if you haven't been kissed yet, I like to leave it just kind of nude and natural. Again, maybe just like a chapstick or a sweet little lip gloss that you really enjoy to add some of that color. But for the most part, I like to leave it a little bit bare because you're expecting that kiss, girlfriend, right? Oh my God, I almost forgot. Definitely, if you don't have this in your beauty counter, you totally should. Beauty counter. Yes, you should have your own personal beauty counter. The Morphe setting spray is so good. I also really like the All Nighter by Urban Decay. So I'm just gonna quickly grab my hair up here since I've already like poofed it out and everything, and quickly set my makeup. Oh, it's so nice. It's just like so delicate. It is perfumey, but it's so, so, so delicate. Feels really good. That's all that I have for this video. I hope it was helpful and I hope that you have an amazing date. If you like this video, don't forget to click the like button down below because it really supports my channel. Please hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me, and I hope to see you next week. Bye!